Anxiety and depression often go hand in hand. People experiencing anxiety may find themselves in a state of constant worry and fear, which can lead to feelings of hopelessness and sadness characteristic of depression. This connection is common because the emotional and psychological stress from anxiety can deplete a person's mental resilience, paving the way for depressive symptoms. You're not going to want to miss this message, so don't go anywhere. From a strictly scientific perspective, anxiety and depression share similar biological mechanisms, such as imbalances in neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine. These chemicals play crucial roles in regulating mood and anxiety levels. Studies have shown that around 60% of individuals with depression also experience symptoms of anxiety. The overlapping symptoms can make it challenging to distinguish between the two conditions, leading to a dual diagnosis of both anxiety and depression in many cases. So let's talk about the purpose of depression in our lives. Unlike anxiety, which is typically associated with an anticipation of future threats to come, depression can serve a functional role. It is a normal reaction to certain life events and can signal to us that something in our lives needs attention right away. This kind of reactive depression, though painful, can lead to personal growth and transformation. The Bible provides an insightful example in the story of Elijah. After his triumph over the prophets of Baal, Elijah fled in fear and experienced deep despair. We read about this in the book of 1 Kings chapter 19. His depression was not a sign of spiritual failure, but a part of his journey. And God allowed him to rest and then provided sustenance for him, which was according to what his needs were, showing that there are times when we must endure and reflect upon ourselves before finding renewal in him. While depression can sometimes be a natural and necessary response to life's difficulties, anxiety often stems from a lack of trust in God's plan. The Bible encourages us to surrender our worries to God, not to carry them. In the book of Matthew, chapter 6, verse 34, Jesus teaches, "Therefore do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own." There are many biblical examples of how to overcome anxiety in our lives. For example, David, we look at his confidence in God. David often faced situations that could induce great anxiety, yet he found strength in God every time. In the book of Psalms, chapter 27, verse 1, David says, "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom then shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid?" David's trust in God's protection helped him to overcome his fears. He was not entrapped. He was not ensnared in anxiety. He was released and made free by the Spirit of God. Jesus also experienced immense anxiety before his crucifixion. Even though he was God in human form in the flesh, he was also fully man. And it describes in Luke chapter 22 exactly how he felt. He prayed earnestly and he submitted to God's will for his life. He said, "Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me. Yet not my will, but yours be done." Jesus' surrender to God's plan brought him peace and the strength to face what lay ahead. So let's spend a few moments thinking about spiritual strategies that we could use for overcoming anxiety and depression in our lives. Number one, I think this is first and foremost, we have to accept the reality of our situation. One key to overcoming anxiety is just simply accepting the worst case scenario. It's a concept that I found in Dale Carnegie's book, How to Stop Worrying and Live Your Life. But it's also echoed in the teachings of the Apostle Paul. He said in Philippians chapter 1, verse 21, "For to me to live is Christ, and to die is gain." This mindset encourages us to find contentment and peace regardless of our circumstances. We have to trust in God's sovereignty and in his divine will for our lives. Number two, we have to surrender everything over to Jesus Christ. True victory over both anxiety and prolonged depression comes through surrendering all aspects of our lives to God. When we acknowledge that He is in control, we can experience the peace that comes from trusting in His plan. In the book of Proverbs, chapter 3, verses 5 and 6, it says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight." We can also learn contentment in every condition that we find ourselves in. Learning to become content like the Apostle Paul did helps us to combat both anxiety and depression. In the book of Philippians, chapter 4, verses 11 to 13, Paul writes, "I have learned to be content in whatever the circumstances I am in. I can do all this through Him who gives me strength." This contentment is not about denying our feelings, but about finding stability and hope in Jesus Christ. So as we wrap this up today, I want to say this. Anxiety and depression are absolutely complex systems of the mind and often intertwined, yet they serve different roles in our lives. Depression can sometimes be a necessary phase of introspection and growth. It's not necessarily a bad thing. By accepting reality, surrendering everything over to Jesus Christ, and learning to be content in all our situations, we can gain victory over these challenges. Remember that God is with us through every trial. He's guiding us toward inner peace and restoration of the true self. As we navigate the challenges of anxiety and depression, let us take heart in knowing that God's promises are steadfast and true. Isaiah chapter 41 verse 10 tells us this, "So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." Embrace the journey. Trust that God's grace is sufficient and His power is made perfect in our weaknesses. Through faith and perseverance, we can overcome. We can find peace and joy in the Lord who sustains us every day.